Kyle Pitts seems to be like the runaway favorite to be the first tight end off the board. But where are any of these teams going to feel comfortable taking a tight end? Like, I've seen some people say, oh, he's definitely a top 10 pick. Then I look at it, I was like, Carolina? Maybe? Like, I don't think that the Eagles are going to go for another tight end. Like, are you really going to spend that high of a draft pick on a tight end right now? Like, how good is this guy?
I think he's extremely good. I mean, whether you look at him as a tight end or even a wide receiver, because he did play a good bit outside, and looking at his skill set, he can win on the outside versus press or man corners. It's something we've seen him do, and he's one of the big reasons. If you want to put a reason as to why Kyle Trask's name is even being mentioned in the top 2 rounds of the NFL draft, Kyle Pitts is a huge, huge part of that. The guy's got an insane body control. He's a mismatch for size and speed, no matter whether you line him up inside or outside. Now, saying all of that, Pat, I don't see him going inside the top 10. I think the Panthers could make some sense, especially with Robbie Anderson basically having 1 year left on his deal. So and Curtis Samuel's out the door. Do they address possibly that secondary role behind DJ Moore in the years going forward? Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I think they need a quarterback more, but I think Pitts falling into the mid-teens makes a ton of sense. And I love, if he were to land with the Los Angeles Chargers and they don't re-sign Hunter Henry, I would love that fit for him.
I think that's entirely viable just based on looking at the team needs of what everyone has. Maybe the Giants move on from Ingram and end up going with Pitts and have Ingram's barely a tight end too. He's essentially a receiver. So if they move on from him, they take Pitts. Maybe they can upgrade at that spot a little bit. Obviously, like, the Niners aren't going to draft another tight end. The Cowboys probably aren't in that market right at the moment either. Although Jarwin coming back from injury, I mean, they could upgrade, but they just spent another pick on CeeDee Lamb a year ago. Are they really going to go with a tight end at number 10 the following year? Probably not. The Broncos have Fant. The Panthers would be the one logical team because the Lions just spent the Hawkinson pick. And I think everything above that, like Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are a real wild card. I have no idea what they're going to do with their pick. I really don't.
No, and that's the one thing. I mean, depending on what you've looked at and where they could go wide receiver, they could go one of these skill position players, they could go quarterback. I think that it makes a ton of sense for them to trade back. And I know I've mentioned that for multiple teams, but you have a lot of these teams. The reason they're at the top is because they're not good. So they have multiple needs on their depth chart. So them moving back a few slots and reloading their entire depth chart, especially guys on rookie contracts, and as bad as the salary cap situation for the Eagles is right now, makes a ton of sense. But they're a wild card. I mean, what the Eagles do is going to be really interesting in that side of that top 10. What the Dolphins do is going to be extremely interesting as well.
I guess after that, if the Chargers decide that they want to protect Herbert and they go offensive lineman and don't go tight end, like, can Pitts block at all?
His blocking, I mean, we talked about this with Josh Palacci over at FTN. His blocking is definitely the weak point of his game. And it's honestly why he's getting a lot of hype, and for good reason, considering how good he is in the passing game. But I'm not going to rule it out that Pitts is a guy that just because of where he could get drafted in the NFL, and if he gets stuck in one of these NFL teams where we can't assume rational coaching, we can't assume these head coaches, because we've seen this insanity in numerous seasons. We can't assume that he's going to end up in a spot where they are going to maximize his skill set. And his weak link is blocking at this point. So he goes top 15, top 17 to a team, and they ask him to be an inline blocker and an inline tight end and block a ton. I've got my concerns, Pat. I definitely do, considering that is, if you're looking at holes in Kyle Pitts' game, he improved as a blocker in this past collegiate season, but it's still not pretty. It's still not great.